the path to the playoff for Viktor Hovland included that birdie on 17. And really, it was the 3-hole stretch all week long here, KP. Viktor played the final 3 holes at 2 under in aggregate for the week. If he would have played them to field average, he would have played him at 4.5 strokes over par. So those 12 holes, the final 3 holes over 4 rounds, he gained 6.5 shots to the field. That gets him into a playoff that he is eventually, spoiler alert, going to win.
Yeah, he even said that to Jack Nicklaus at the end. He was like, "Yeah, 17, easy hole. I played it in 2 under." Which was
only birdie of the day today.
Which was, yeah, it was a sick birdie. It was very tongue in cheek, but it was Victor's low key, like really funny. Rose just hit it tight on 6. I think we're on 16. There's a lot going on today. Yeah, it was super impressive. Those last 3 holes. I mean, that's kind of why I kept saying like Scheffler's going to win, because you had the last 3 holes coming. And you knew McCarthy wasn't going to get it through there unscathed. He almost made double at the last. And Viktor playing them in 1 under, I mean, that's like just shooting up the leaderboard, right? Even just because of like how difficult it is to play those last 3. So super impressive. I'm trying to think of what he did on even 18. He shouldn't have made par on 18 after that tee shot, and he did. And I thought the way he closed was pretty awesome.
Viktor Hovland makes a 4 on the first playoff hole, sudden death, and captures victory, which, Patrick, is by far the biggest win of his career. We have said on this podcast, we've been waiting for the Viktor flagship victory. Go win something big. Go win something big on American soil. He checks off those boxes here this week.
I think I called him Dr. Doolittle after his last win when he had the is that a chameleon for Mayakoba? Is that the trophy?
That's correct.
And I guess
technically
I think that still plays since he won the Golden Bears tournament. So we're still going to roll with it, at least for now. But it's a long time coming. I mean, this guy has been in contention the last 3 major championships. He was in the final group at the Open with Rory at St. Andrews. I don't think it really gets bigger than that. And maybe the only thing that might is facing the best major championship performer of the last decade. And he did that pretty damn well for 15 holes there at Oak Hill. So, yeah, I think it's just crazy to me that all these great players, and I know Viktor's gotten a lot better with the short game stuff. He really has. I think kind of the sticky, high rough around greens, that's where you kind of need to target him if you're looking for him to have a good week or whatnot. But so many of these guys have like deficiencies, like glaring deficiencies. And you could say Viktor Hovland's a top 5 player in the world at the moment, and 2 of them are like potentially could be lost in like one aspect of their game. It's just extremely fascinating to me.
I thought it was fascinating, KP, that Viktor finally kind of addressed what we've been talking about a little bit on this pod. Amanda Renner of like, yeah, I've probably been a hair too aggressive in the past, and I don't need to take on every flag stick, especially at a place where 7 under par gets you into a playoff. And that kind of mental adjustment of aggressive swings at conservative targets seems to have unlocked a different side of things here.
Yeah, it was funny because Trevor Immelman right after that said, he was looking at the data and saw that he didn't have to rip at every pin. And you're like, he could have just listened to the First Cut podcast and known that. Like, there was data is always necessary. It was actually not necessary in this specific instance. But we hear this over and over again, right, Rick? Where I remember Max Homa talking about how you get out on tour and you're like, oh, I have to be perfect for 72 holes. And guys don't, and I understand why, because you get out there and you watch Rory hit and you watch Rahm hit and you watch guys just Bryson hit and guys just DJ compress the ball. And you're like, well, I can't do that. And that's true. But there's an element of trust. We've talked about this with Rory at majors. There's an element of trust of saying like, hey, I can't hit it like that. I've got some deficiencies. I'm going to make bogeys, but I trust that at the end of 72 holes, my game is good enough to be there. And I think that Hovland it seems like, you know this better than I do, it seems like he's put in the work to the point where he just trusts that work is like good enough that at the end of the week, he's going to be one of the top 3 or 4 guys, right? And I think that's really, it's a really important lesson for other pros. And it's one that if you learn it when you have the skill set that Viktor Hovland has, it's kind of scary because he wins a lot. Like he's won 8% or 7% of his starts, 8 of 110 OWGR starts he's won, which is just a tremendous winning percentage. And so if he's, now that he's like got that confidence, I think he could win a lot more over the next several years.
Well, let's talk about the work side of things, Patrick, because we'll zoom out a little bit here, right? And at the start of 2023, Viktor was not happy with the state of his game, which I thought was bizarre because he was coming off the win at the Hero World Challenge and he was already a 4-time PGA Tour winner, but he was not happy. And he starts working with Joe Mayo. Every time we've been out at an event in the last 6 months, he is the last guy to leave the driving range at night. It feels like that every single week. And you started to see the metrics turn around, the around the green stuff, the ball striking got even more and more elite. I mean, this is him like just putting in work to make the worst stuff of his game better and the best stuff of his game even more deadly.
Yeah. When I hear players like trying to address deficiencies in their game, my first thought goes, will his strengths fall off at all? You know, you think about a golf swing, like spinning plates. Do you focus too much on this one falls off and crashes. And it hasn't been like that at all. And it's been, I think what I'm most impressed about Viktor is his short game is there at the biggest stage. Like he still has some poor weeks, like no doubt about that, but it's not at the PGA Championship. It's not this week at Memorial. He played well at the Players Championship as well. Arnold Palmer Invitational as well. So like these more difficult setups where par's a great score, it's firm out there. You're going to miss greens. He's still like performing to his peak, which I think is very impressive. It's almost kind of like Colin Morikawa, not so much lately, but when Colin has a great putting week, he always matches it up with a fantastic like iron week, it seems like. And that's why he was able to rattle off all those wins very early in his career. And I'm kind of getting the same sense about Viktor in his short game.
He's going to win the US Open too.
Okay. So the natural conversation, KP, right, is like, you don't get away with winning the Memorial without being like, well, all right, now let's talk about major championships. I mean, he's put himself in the mix at major championships, right? 3 basically final group.
3 in a row. Yeah.
And now we're going to go to LA. I mean, it doesn't feel the same as like a Xander Schauffele of like, what have you done? Or a I should say probably like Patrick Cantlay in terms of like, what have you done at major championships? Because he has been in the mix, but now the conversation is inevitably going to turn to like, let's start the clock on Viktor winning majors.
Yeah. I don't know if he's done enough for it not to be like a start the clock situation. And I think that I would actually love to hear your insight on this, Rick, because like I said, you know him better than Patrick and I do, but he seems like just kind of a gamer. Like he kind of seems like kind of the stuff we said about Denny McCarthy, but with a lot more like a lot higher skill level from tee to green. And he kind of seems like he wants the ball. He's not really scared. I mean, we walked with him forever at Oak Hill, and it was like he wasn't really like scared of Brooks Koepka, you know, in ways that some other guys are. So I'm interested about your like just curious about your insight there.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things, and I think that he definitely is way more of a killer than other people are like that he gets presented as, which is great. Like if I was his PR person, I'd be like, that's awesome. He's like the nice guy who's always got the Norwegian smile on his face, but underneath he's like a low key killer. And like, he wants to stomp you. Like he just wants to stomp you, and he's quick to congratulate and quick to smile, but like then go to the range and kind of stew about it a little bit and get back to work. So I don't think that gets shown as much. The other thing is, and this will sound like an ad for Joe Mayo, but like working with Joe Mayo, who is a character of his own, this guy should have a TV show, is something I think that's very liberating for Viktor. When I saw them at Riviera and I walked with them in a practice round, that was the first time I met Joe. And we were just kind of talking. I was like, well, what do you see here? Like, what's going on? And he's so quick to be like, Viktor's going to win multiple majors. Viktor's going to win multiple majors. And he's this big, gregarious guy who does all the talking in the relationship, all the talking in that relationship. And when he starts pumping your tires like that, I think it's easy to start believing it. And I think that Viktor has been listening to Joe pump his tires, and rightfully so. And it's like kind of in the same way that I think Ted Scott, Kyle, like allows a lot of freedom into Scotty Scheffler's game, that the constant Joe Mayo around kind of unlocks something as Viktor.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because there's so many people. I forgot, somebody said this recently. They were talking about how many people there are in golf that you've never heard of that have such an impact on all the things that we talk about a lot, that they're just behind the scenes, right? And that's not anybody's fault. It's just like it's like any job or corporation or industry. Like, you see Jeff Bezos, but you don't see the 27 other executives that do things to make Jeff Bezos who Jeff Bezos is, right? And I think that's sort of what I think of when I think of Viktor. And it's interesting because I think one thing we don't talk enough about is the importance of self-confidence and of trust. Yeah. And even a 10% tweak, a 5% tweak on something like that can be the difference in winning the Memorial and, finishing T7 every week. So I think that's good insight. And I think I'm coming out of Oklahoma State, I was Team Wolf in terms of who would have the better career. I thought he was super dynamic. He had a lot of Rory to him. And Hovland has just endured. Like, he's just been so consistent, so steady. And I could not be more excited about the rest of kind of how his career plays out.
Yeah. Really, really good spot physically, really good spot mentally.